Joining me now is Paul Ténière. He is the CEO of LaFleur Minerals. Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Mark. It's nice to see you.
So let's start with a brief overview, if you could, of the company's two main assets: the gold mill in Quebec, the Beacon Gold Mill, and then the Swanson Gold Project. Can you give us a snapshot?
Yeah, absolutely. We originally acquired the Swanson project about a year ago now. When Monarch Mining went into CCAA, several of their assets came up for grabs. So we were lucky to get Swanson. Probe Metals got some other projects, and then so we started off with the Swanson project, which had an existing resource on it, which we updated. So the combined is around just under 200,000 ounces of gold. And then as part of acquiring that asset, we also grew the size of the Swanson project through consolidation with other claims in the area, doing option agreements. And so since we grew from 5,000 hectares to now it's almost over 160 square kilometers. And all of that covers major gold targets in the area. So in the eastern Abitibi, north of Val-d'Or, and that includes the Bartek, Cholat, deposits as well. And we've also discovered other potential deposits just through geophysics and also doing soil geochemistry surveys. Just a few months after, we also had the opportunity to acquire the Beacon Gold Mill, which is actually located in Val-d'Or. This was the mill that Monarch Mining was using to process ore at their Beaufort mine. It went into care and maintenance in sort of late 2022, early 2023. And so we acquired it, as I said, about 6 months ago by the time we closed everything as part of the CCAA proceedings. And then since then, we've been looking to upgrade it or at least get it back up and running. Monarch had spent over $20 million refurbishing the mill up to 2022. So it's in great shape. It's fully permitted. Our tailings storage facility is also fully permitted and is able to handle up to 1.8 million tons. So it's got conceivably a mine life of 15 to 20 years at about 750 tons per day production at the Beacon Mill. So we've really grown quite a bit in a very short period of time. So we have advanced exploration projects, but we also have a mill. So we're looking to go into production. And so it's a kind of a unique situation to be in. And we have deposits of our own, but we're also looking at other projects as well.
Right. Let's stick with the Beacon Gold Mill. The company recently announced a memorandum of understanding with the Granada Gold Mine, whereby the two companies will assess the possibility of LaFleur's mill processing their material. So what can you tell us about that? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first step in trying to get the mill back up and running. We are looking at various alternatives. We're looking at processing bulk samples and nearby deposits, but also looking at something larger, which is to do custom milling at the Beacon Mill once we get it back up and running. And one of those deposits is the Granada Gold deposit, which is to the west of Val-d'Or. And so we spoke with them, and they are interested in looking at a mill for their feed. And so we thought we'd start with an MOU just to look at whether there's synergies between their ore and what we can process at the Beacon Mill. It gives us a chance for both parties to look at the mill and the ore itself and the metallurgical testing to determine whether it's a good fit. Initially, we do believe it will be a good fit, but this is the first step towards moving towards a commercial agreement.
And then you mentioned that the Beacon Gold Mill is near-term production. Sounds like it's essentially ready to go. What's the timeline there?
Yeah, so we're actually in the final stages of doing a full inventory and check of the mill. The good news was when Monarch put it under care and maintenance about 18 months ago, they did it the correct way. So it's the right way to put a mill into care and maintenance. And so and the people responsible for that, the workers responsible for that, are actually the ones that are actually helping us put the mill back into production. So we're putting a plan and a budget together to restart the mill. And most of the cost is going to be related to getting spare parts, essentially, for the mill. When the mill shut down, it was during the sort of height of the COVID pandemic. They were having issues at that time with supply chain issues to get extra parts. So part of the assessment that's going on now is to get those extra parts. And when you're running a mill, you want to make sure you have spare parts, just in things will fail. And so you're not waiting weeks and weeks for parts to arrive. You have them already there at the site, and you're to be able to, your mechanics and your electricians are be able to put all that back together again. And so you're not losing a lot of production time. So that we should have a plan for that in the next few weeks. Once we take a look at that, we'll find what the cost of that. And then we'll be looking to raise additional funds to actually partake with that work. The anticipated timeline, we're still waiting on the final plan, but we're talking months and not years. For example, our plan and our goal is to get the mill back up and running before the end of this year.
All right, very exciting, and not a lot of companies can say that they are near production. Now, moving over and back to the Swanson Gold Project, which LaFleur Minerals bought within the last year, as you said. Could you give us a sense, Paul, of some of the work that the team is doing leading up to a drilling campaign?
Yeah, so with Swanson, what we've done is we're looking at it on a much grander scale than in the past. So in the past with the Swanson deposit, there had been a bulk sample done. There was some underground work done to collect a bulk sample. It's a fairly advanced project, and there have been a significant amount of drilling done, well over 35,000 meters of drilling. So we're focused not only on that, but also the other deposits to the south that are now part of what we call the Swanson Consolidated Project. And so what we've done is we're looking at it on a more regional scale. So we've done a very high resolution geophysics over the entire project area, over the full 160 square kilometers. And the purpose of that is to really look at much more details on the structures that may host. And then from there, we were able to then target and bring that down even more with looking at prospecting and soil geochemistry over some of the main targets that I already had historical estimates on it from years ago, but also to see if there's any other targets and anomalies that can be picked up in the soil geochemistry. So we have that data now, and we are seeing actually additional anomalies and that are potentially structures that will host either faults or folds that could host gold. So now we're in the process of getting our drilling permits, and we're going to be looking at least 4 to 5 different target areas within that, as well as Swanson, to drill up to 10,000 meters to start, and maybe more. And that will be looking at step outs from the existing targets themselves, and also potentially some infill. And what we're looking to do, we already have, as I said, just under 200,000 ounces at Swanson itself, but we're looking to get up to 1 million ounces the Swanson project area. So we have some historical estimates on some of the other ones. They're very old. So part of what we'll be doing is doing verification drilling to look at that, to confirm some of that historical drilling, but also just expanding beyond, whether it's on strike or at depth as well. Most of the targets here are quite shallow. So most of them are open pit potential as opposed to just solely underground.
And can you expand on that and the model, which you said essentially is hub and spoke, and ultimately the goal is to have the mill, the cash flow spun off from the mill, help to finance the exploration to grow the resource, correct?
That's correct. So one of the advantages of the Swanson deposit is actually sitting on a mining lease. So that mining lease has been around for many, many years. And so one of the things we're looking at now is doing a bulk sample on that mining lease. And but looking at it more, traditionally it was looked at more underground, but now we're looking at, with the price of gold being over $3,000 an ounce, now we're looking at open pit. So we're looking at a bulk sample there, and the bulk sample collected from there would then be taken down to the Beacon Mill. So we have that as an option. We're also talking to companies that have projects in the area that are looking at maybe to start with a bulk sample, but then potentially looking at the Beacon Mill as a processing facility for their own ore, instead of building, and spending $300 million to build their own mill, their tailing storage facility, and all the permitting and years it takes to get that going. They're seeing that Beacon, even though in some cases it could be 50 to 100 kilometers away from their site, it does make economic sense to actually use the Beacon Mill to process their ore through a custom milling or DSO arrangement, for example. So when we talk about hub and spoke, that's what we're talking about. talking about not only our own projects, but also other projects in the area. And there is a need for that. And so we've had many companies interested. We've had many discussions. Some of the companies are still a little bit early stage. They're sort of trying to get through their pre-feasibility studies and their permitting, but they have opportunities initially for bulk samples, and that's in the near term, in the next few months, for example. And so once we get the mill back up and running, we'll be able to process those at very short order, as well as being able to do that on our own projects as well.
And then on the financial side, the company recently raised more than $4 million through a few non-brokered private placements. I believe Red Cloud was a part of one of those at least. So how would you describe the company's financial position and the backing that you're getting from the shareholder base?
Yeah, so we just did a recent flow through financing, again through help from Red Cloud. That's funding our projects on Swanson, so that's funding our upcoming drilling program, and sort of some of the more recent. We just did an IP survey, for instance, just to really fine tune and de-risk the drilling program. So that's covered under that, plus the drilling program. We're also looking at bulk sampling as well, which we'll be able to use some of those funds for as well. We also did a recent large warrant exercise as well. And so we've got some hard cash coming in from that. And we are looking at other opportunities. Again, for funding the Beacon Mill itself, we are looking at other sources of funding for that. So whether it's through a private placement or debt facility or something else, that's essentially what we're looking at. But in most of the everything's sort of internal for the most part. When we have a very close-knit group of investors with the flow through, we obviously have a lot more retail investors involved in that. We are looking potentially to do some additional flow through financing, but it is very closely held, and we are very supportive. Our chairman is very supportive of the company. He has his own companies as well that help fund. So we're looking at alternative sources and various sources of funding, especially to get the Beacon Mill back up and running.
Lastly, Paul, as we sit here, the financial markets are going through at least a couple of days of turmoil after U.S. President Trump unleashed these tariffs. And so having said that, gold, I'm just looking at it here, is still above $3,000 an ounce, near an all-time high. So setting all the turmoil aside, assuming it will subside at some point, can you give us the overall investment case and summarize your thoughts on LaFleur Minerals?
Yeah, so I think with the price of gold being as high as it is, a lot of these projects that we're trying to put ourselves in sort of that in a specific tier. We're not planning on being obviously a major mining company, but there is a sort of a sweet spot for smaller companies, junior to intermediate, that are looking for a mill to process their ore. And so we're really hoping to capitalize on that. And again, with the fact that the mill is in such great condition, is fully permitted, it means our costs are going to be very low to get that mill back up into production. We're already staffed. We already have full-time staff at the mill, and we're looking to expand that in the next few weeks and months. So I think we're going to weather very well. Our hope is to get into production and then be revenue generating, and then the revenue from the mill will then support us in our growth strategy and looking at acquiring other projects and even expanding our own projects and bringing them also into production. So we definitely we see opportunities but even though the markets are in a bit of turmoil, we do see opportunities to grow our market cap, especially once we're back and get over that 50 million and higher and up to 100 million market cap. That is our goal in the very short term.
All right, Paul, well, thank you very much for shedding some light on LaFleur Minerals. We'll be watching, and we hope to talk to you down the road.
The opportunity.
All right, Paul Ténière, he is the CEO of LaFleur Minerals. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.